Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have April Uchitel with us today. She is CEO and founder at We Are the Board. She's the co-founder of Dish Studios Los Angeles, has been a CEO at various companies, including On the Beauty, Violet Gray, and a whole other array of companies, Spring Inc., and a bunch of others. We're going to talk about her background today. We're going to talk about boards, possibly governance. This pod is brought to you by podpar.com if you want to start or scale a podcast. April, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, my journey has been a little bit, I wouldn't say all over the place, but I spent about 25 years in fashion, and then I moved into tech, and then I moved into beauty, and now I'm in the business of community. And so it's one of those things where you look back and everything you've done has led you to here. And so I look at it, never really as a pivot, but just this journey. And I think it's how we're all currently transitioning, and things are no longer static or linear by any means. And so, my career has been organic in that way of just kind of leading to the next. And so right now I'm the co-founder and CEO of the board, and it's a collective of top fractional talent, a lot of senior and C-suite executives that spent the last few years kind of reassessing and have moved into fractional economy. So leaving big companies like Apple, Google, Meta, Disney, Walmart, Net-a-Porter, Barbara Sturm, all sorts of beauty, fashion, kind of tech and media. And so I just kind of saw this opportunity, to be honest, in my career of talking to literally thousands of brands and founders and leaders, and really, as we've seen, the pandemic has pushed people just to rethink, and reevaluate quality of life. And a lot of people have made some big choices and big moves, and trying to find the right balance, I think, is the key. And especially if you've been sitting at the top of big organizations, there sometimes gets to be a point where you want to get back to the building. You end up in almost like an HR role. And so a lot of people took that time during the pandemic to really kind of go deep and what do I really want to do and contribute and have impact for more than just one company, right? And so in aggregate, what we're able to do is to kind of curate top talent. And so as a destination for companies, when you are looking for outside support, we want to be the first phone call, is calling the board. So we are your board of experts. And so it's multiple disciplines and industries that I laid out, but senior and C-suite, so CMOs, CFOs, CEOs, CTOs, but also niche expertise in Amazon, TikTok, Gen Z, sustainability, Sephora, depending where people have spent a lot of years, AI, et cetera. And so we're, I think, building something a little bit of a mashup. It's a bit of a community/agency model in the way that we support two sides of the community on the member side, but also the brands that we work with.
What was your first CEO position and what did you learn from it?
So my first CEO role was at Violet Gray. So Violet Gray is a premium, it's a beauty destination here in Los Angeles. It's e-commerce as well as one physical location. The thing that differentiated Violet Gray was very much curation and content, but also the fact that they had something called the Violet Code, which was really the building trust. So every single product we stocked was tested by our committee of literally hundreds of dermatologists, makeup artists, celebrities that touched makeup and beauty all the time. And so it really allowed us to bring that authenticity into choice and curation and working with top premium brands, but also discovering and launching new brands. And so I stepped in there around end of 2017, supporting the founder in kind of transitioning the business a little bit, but ultimately helping it grow and scale. And it was acquired by Farfetch about a year or so after I left. And so it's currently owned by Farfetch right now, but it wasn't on my bucket list to be a CEO, put it that way. I have lots of friends that literally it is on their bucket list as CEO and then board seats. And so mine was never that directional. It was really looking at those opportunities. And I came in through a consultant window where I started fractionally. So interesting kind of nod to the board, because it's the ability to kind of try before you buy, on both sides. And I think that's something that's so important, especially if someone's coming in to lead, to have equity, to really have ownership. I think it's really critical to make sure it's a fit, because we all know all the stories when it's not, and how impossible and hard it is to unravel.
Right. And what was your first founder role? What prompted you to start your own business from scratch?
So when I stepped down from Violet Grey during the pandemic, I did kind of that same reckoning that a lot of my peers were reaching out to me about, and just the what do I want to do? What are my superpowers? What am I really good at? What am I done doing? And I honestly gave myself kind of this big picture remit of, what can I do that I have agency over? What can I do from anywhere? And what can I do for as long as I want? So that was honestly really simple how I put out like the what's next. And then kind of organically, like I said, because of my network, a lot of my peers were reaching out, letting me know that they were making these, significant career shifts. And it just became, funny enough, something that I've been thinking about doing for a while is creating Angie's List meets Tinder, in the sense of there's so many companies that really need to figure out the next thing, and there's people that have done that. And so how do they connect? And then how do we make that transactional? So it's it was literally a marketplace that I was the chief brand officer of, met Violet Grey with the code and the very kind of specific lens around authenticity, integrity, really this value-based set of humans, and bringing those together in this mashup. And that's where I felt like my superpowers were. I'm really good at kind of being a good Pied Piper and organizing people, and my network is pretty deeply connected. And so when you start to look into the impact of all of this collaboration and what it can bring for the members in their own individual journeys and the brand side, that's kind of when like I started saying, sometimes you just look back and everything you've done has led you to exactly where you're meant to be. And so just kind of trusted that. And also knowing that, I was kind of done helping, honestly, very wealthy founders build businesses, which I've done in the past, and really wanting to do something that didn't have a specific rule book, right? So that's the fun part of being a founder. You kind of make it up as you go, but it's also paving the road while you're driving, which is intense and somewhat, exhausting. But at the same time, when it's yours, and when it's something that you have your footprint and your stamp on, of all of your learnings, the things you love from the companies you've worked at, from the companies you've admired, from the ways people are reimagining. And I think the board is an incredible facilitator from that perspective of just really big thinkers and generous humans who are just wanting to bring their A game into more companies. And so creating a structure around that, monetizing that, scaling that, those are all the fun parts to figure out. But it starts with an innate passion and seeing, not necessarily a white space in the way that, on a CPG perspective, because at the end of the day, it's very much based on the humans that are participating. So it's a unique problem to solve. And I just surround myself with incredible humans. And, I'm by far not the smartest person in the room. And so we are the board really harkens to, it's a collaborative effort to just reimagine this space.
You seem to be quite creative. When it comes to launching your companies, how do you decide on what is a good investment of your time? I see I am voter as well. I see
Mhm.
Glam for Goods. These are more on the social side of things, but
Yeah.
do you let yourself be guided by your passions, or do you have a systems on what to launch next?
I mean, it's very much passion and relationships. I think as you move through the world and you amass networks, it's the cream always rises to the top. The people that you go back to, the people that you trust, the people that you have a like-mindedness with. And so when those people are doing the next thing, I'm always the first person to jump in and help. And so Glam for Good is an organization that does incredible work. And she saw, Mary Al Stevenson, who's the founder there, saw this opportunity to really bridge just the abundance of product on the fashion and beauty side and connect it to the need. And so it was a no-brainer to jump in and see how I can bring my brand relationships into those conversations. I'm a voter, very much stemmed from, this group of us who really saw, honestly, after Trump was elected, this moment of like, holy crap, we need to get involved. in at least bringing voices to the table. It's a nonpartisan organization, but this idea of if we can sell lipstick, we can sell voting. So let's go. And how do we make it cool so people do it? Because quite frankly, there's an association of, what are the people I admire doing? And if it's buying this lipstick, wearing this pair of tennis shoes, going to this concert, there's no difference than saying, show up at the polls, get yourself educated as to what's on the ballot, talk about it like it's a very important, cool thing to do so that more people do it. And so we just really approached it almost from a marketing perspective, and we were able to bring in just incredible partnerships from the NBA, NFL, a lot of incredible brands, to celebrities, to organizations like AMC Theater and even McDonald's. And that's been really rewarding. And that's all, just volunteer work on the side, but it has this shared ethos of, showing up together and joining forces and bringing what to the table and who to the table to advance things for the greater good, whether it is helping, kind of increase voter registrations in that model, helping brands unload, inventory that can really benefit, shelters and disaster relief, as well as low-income girls going to prom. And so, it just feels like you have to show up. We're at this place in the world and in life and in the state of not only the planet, but what's happening in the geopolitical climate, that you cannot sit back. If you have something you can bring to the table that you believe will have impact, I don't know how you cannot. And so I think I kind of take that lens when someone does reach out, to be an advisor or to weigh in on something. And I've always done that in my career. And I really built the board, honestly, to put a structure around that. And quite frankly, to monetize in a sense where these relationships are also very valuable. And so finding the right time when it is a, for profit, and when it is time spent helping companies move forward that I really believe are doing incredible work. I just joined another company, Half the Story, that is in the digital wellness space. And, it's an incredible founder that used to be actually an intern for me at Spring. And I've watched her journey for the last 10 plus years. And it's just so inspiring to see. And I've, just thrilled when someone reaches out to say, can you help me get it from here to here? And so that's it's hard to say no, which is why I work till 1 o'clock in the morning most nights. But at the same time, it's just they all connect. You really see how they feed each other and how they inform each other, and how that movement and that forward motion is so inspiring.
You recently turned 57. What have
Oh,
been
thanks.
some,
Thanks for calling that out.
yeah, it's public, so why not?
It is. I did
What
post it. It's
what have
true.
been your lessons so far in life from living up to this point and having so many experiences?
Oh, it's funny because sometimes I do feel 57, and most of the time I feel like I'm the same age as everybody I'm around. And so I think surrounding yourself with a variety of ages and talents, and we only get better when we level up with people around us. And so I think what I've learned in the past was trying to push myself forward, and without taking away from anybody else, right? It's like there's plenty of room on the stage for everybody. There's plenty of companies out there to work with. There's plenty of things we can share. There's no scarcity. But what I've really seen is you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You really don't. You really want to be in rooms with people that know more than you, think differently, do things in a completely different way, so that you're constantly learning and growing. And that's something that life has taught me for sure, where when you're being honored for something, it's great to sit around a table and have people look up to you, but it's way better to be at that table learning from the person who, is 10 steps ahead or in a completely different category that is just doing some mind-blowing work. I think that's just critical for growth, and just staying curious. And honestly, as we all go through self-doubt and imposter syndrome, and oh my gosh, am I even employable? After leaving really huge companies and jobs, thinking about the next thing is just having that trust that you're on your own path. And if you can stop comparing yourself to other people's paths, I think that's a big lesson, because it's really easy to have your ego, jump into that comparison game, and seeing who is doing things, that you're like, shit, that was so smart, or that just look like they're killing it, when the reality is we all have great days and bad days, and you could be winning in career but losing in family. And they just never know anybody's real story. And it goes back to this now that we're all our own brands and we all market ourselves on social and we're all telling certain sides of our stories, is bringing that transparency and that humility in. And that also is something, honestly, age helps a lot. You start giving less, fucks about so many things, and you really start to hone into what matters, because you really start to feel that, life is shorter than you used to think when you were in your 30s. And surrounding yourself with young minds, that's the other thing. It's not only thinking of leveling up as with senior leaders, but it's these really interesting who are inheriting the planet and who are inheriting, AI driven everything and are trying to navigate that space. And so I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. And so watching them and their journeys, which is just so different than my, high school and college journeys were, that it's kind of mind blowing. And I learned so much, honestly, from my daughter and her perspective and journey. And I love that, I love that it goes both ways.
And what is your parenting style? Is it more on the libertarian side?
Yeah, I would say it's on more progressive. I know it's been so fun once your kids get out of, the death watch world of just keeping them alive and not falling downstairs and eating crayons, and they start to become humans and they start to have opinions. You realize the power you have in molding them, not only like where you raise them, next to who's in the neighborhood, what school they go to. It's pretty daunting. I grew up in a small town, Colorado, where you just walked to the closest school and it was what it was. And now we have so many more choices, and there's a lot of privilege, but there's a lot of access. And so as a parent, you have many more decisions to make, and you have so much information, not only around diet and education and should they be learning Mandarin at 4, I mean, it's really insane. And so you have to just somehow trust your inner compass, and whatever that foundation, at the end of the day, you want to raise really kind humans, that really see their position in the world is not just to take, but to bring and grow. And I think that's important in my style, is kind of leading by example. What I'm doing with I'm a Voter, what I'm doing with all these other things that are, definitely taking time, but are passion projects, I see as something that for sure my daughter is witnessing and starting to participate in her own way, which is pretty cool. Um, my son, not so much yet, but he's got some time. And, I feel like you just build deeper bonds, and we're closer to our kids, in terms of they become your friends earlier. It's weird, than we probably did in with our parents, although I have amazing relationships there too. But I think it's surrounding yourself to as they're watching, what are they watching you do? How are they seeing you behave? I think that's the best parenting hack.
How do you work with your husband? I see some nice pictures on the website.
And on
How's
the wall.
Yeah, and behind you.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
how's that dynamic work?
It's been great. I was in fashion for a long time. He's been a fashion and beauty photographer. We did collaborate. Funny enough, when I was at Diane von Furstenberg, I remember bringing samples in my suitcase because he was on a shoot somewhere else and just randomly. But he did a book, which we co-curated, which was an amazing project we did together. I was able to kind of have a more objective lens than he did, but it was really incredible to go through his archive and do that. And we co-own a photo studio downtown LA, and so he shoots. We rent it out. We have community events there. I use it as our community hub for the board here in Los Angeles, where our members are primarily in New York, LA, and kind of in between, with a small group kind of growing in the UK. And so we use it for that perspective. He's incredibly generous in the way that he thinks. We bring brand partners in there, and so it's been really fun to watch that relationship evolve. I sometimes am his CMO or his COO, or I was managing his Instagram for a hot minute, and so just kind of jump in where you have the skills that they don't have, and vice versa.
What are your top goals for this year?
Oof, figure out how do we save our democracy is maybe the top goal. Um, and honestly, as I'm growing the board, it's funny. I'm trying, to not put limitations on it. I think a lot of us that are operators come from this place of an operating plan and a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan. And I've really learned over the last couple of years in talking to literally hundreds of brands and hundreds of members moving into the fractional space and with how they're looking ahead. We're almost in this short-term vision mode because things are moving so fast. But yet this long-term vision I think is more on the impact than on, the revenue model, the operating plan, like I said, where we're just testing and learning and we're evolving organically with the members on our team, which I just really love this, kind of co-creation moment that we're in. And so I'm constantly amazed. I just onboarded a member who was 15 years at Google and was the CMO of Google Analytics, and her perspective right now on AI is so inspiring. And so we do lunch and learns. We bring our members in to talk to each other, and you start to just realize these unlocks start to happen. And so this year for me is still very much in that exploratory phase, and then building this company into something that I think is a bit of a example for new ways of working, and for people to collaborate, and for companies to hire. And that's my goal, is to, I just want to change the future of work. That's what I'd like to do.
Love it. And where can people find out more about you, April?
So April Uchitel is my handle on obviously social and LinkedIn. We Are the Board is the website, and that's where you can find a lot of information. We just launched an incredible program called Office Hours, which I love, the idea of having experts on speed dial, something that I would have loved to have had in my CEO role, of just being able to quickly call a CFO or an CHRO, someone with, a total objectivity, who can weigh in on a challenge, give tactical advice, have been in your shoes, real Switzerland in that way. And then that to me is an amazing program. So that just launched 2 weeks ago on the website. About 28 incredible fractional executives that can be tapped, on demand.